call to order the June 28th, 2012 meeting of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee at 7:05. And we'll start with our introductions on the right. Bob?
Bob Burns.
Lynn Betteridge.
Lisa Norman.
Mike Mitchell.
Patrick Sweeney.
Brian Watt.
Marty Birch.
Scott Archer, staff.
Okay. Moving on to approval of minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review the minutes? Yes. Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay. Approved and seconded to approve the minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Roaring right through the agenda. Okay, citizen comments on items not on the agenda, and there are no citizens present. So we will move on to point number 4, general business, and 4A, dog park. And I don't have anything to report on that. Scott, is there anything, any further?
Nothing else to
On that-
report other, than what I reported last time where we were exploring the one potential property. I think what I'd like to do, because it's hard to talk about property negotiations in an open meeting, is at our next opportunity we should probably schedule what's called an executive session. For those of you that might not be familiar what that is, it's under Oregon law you can close and have a closed meeting for a few things. One of those is including real estate negotiations, and I think this would be an appropriate one. We don't do that very often with this committee just because it doesn't come up very much, but probably be appropriate to do that. The little bit of a challenge with that is as far as timing. Next month, our meeting is going to be the parks tour, if you remember. So we'll be kind of mobile. We might be able to do something where we maybe meet for 5 or 10 minutes right before we take the tour, and I can just give you an update or something like that. That's it. Because usually we don't have an August meeting. So next opportunity to do something wouldn't be until September. So if that works for you,
that sounds really good.
And we'll talk about the park tour coming up in terms of some logistical things I wanted to go over with you a little bit later on. So I can't really share much more than that at the current time, unless anybody else has any updates on anything of interest, or if you want to talk about anything else at the current time.
Anything else on that topic? I don't think so. Okay, so we'll move on to the annual report to the City Commission. So I made that presentation to the City Commission a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember the exact date. I think they were very receptive to getting the information and to what I had to say. There was a lot of nodding of heads and agreement, not necessarily a lot of questions or comments. The two issues that or the two goals that I think kind of really got them excited a little bit were two of the newer ones, one being the idea of a Parks Open House Day, and the other, the idea of some sort of annual meeting or summit meeting or whatever of all of the advisory committees to share goals and so forth. And they reacted very positively to both of those. There is a little more information. I don't have anything else on that. There's some more information that related specifically to the end of the Oregon Trail and our goal there, but I think that probably makes more sense to talk about when we talk about our next agenda item. So, Scott, anything you want to add, or anybody else? Questions or anything on the annual report?
I thought it was really. I thought it went really well. For those of you that didn't get a chance to see it, Mike did a really nice job, and I just encourage you as a committee to, that we'll want to keep, I think, doing that. It just seems to be a really effective communication tool to kind of have that direct interaction with the commission, which you don't, as a committee, really do that often. So I thought it went really well.
Yeah, I think it helps just keep Parks and Recreation on their mind. They get into a lot of more politically sensitive things than parks probably, but this just helps kind of keep it in their mind. So.
Yeah, I thought it was a really great presentation too, Mike, and I also am just I'm reminded of how we advocate for Parks and Rec, and I think we did a really good job there in that, and also by just I like to call it grassroots because we are from the neighborhoods. We represent the neighborhoods, so we're the neighbors, we're the neighborhoods. And this, I really do also, as you do, think that they really received the Parks Open House idea well, and I think that goes beyond Parks and Rec, really. I mean, it goes to the city's livability and attractability. And so I think that's of great interest to the city of Oregon City, but also the commission in general, not just pigeonholing it into a Parks and Rec issue. Certainly a lot of, I mean, the commission members will be involved, and hopefully that'll be a well-attended event. But I'm looking forward to it, and I suggest that we just continue to add meat to the bones there, so to speak, and how we're going to make that happen, and then present that, continue to update the commission on that.
Okay, and I would just like to thank you again, Brian, for taking the time to meet with me and provide your input. It was very much
Absolutely.
appreciated, and it helped kind of keep the flow going from your first one into the next one. So
Cool.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to End of the Oregon Trail site update. That, as you know, was one of our goals. And when I talked about that goal, we at our last meeting, as you recall, we heard a presentation from Scott about the Clackamas Heritage Partners proposal, and sort of the opinion of the group. The feeling was, and I think almost the exact words that I used when I talked about it with the commission, was I said that it was honestly met with not a lot of enthusiasm and a fair amount of skepticism, particularly because it felt to us like it was just kicking the can down the road, and for another year, a year and a half, however long their agreement is, we weren't really, I mean, were we going to continue to think about what really is the best long-term use for that facility? And so I was sitting here making my presentation. As I got up and walked back to my seat, noticed that Dan Fowler was in the room, who's one of the leaders of Clackamas Heritage Partners. He was there to speak on another topic. The next day, he reached out to Scott and wanted to get my contact information because he wanted to hear more about PRAC's concerns and tell me, I suppose, a little more about their presentation. Where I left it with Scott, because this group had expressed at our last meeting a possible interest in having them come here and address the whole group, I didn't want to jump in ahead of that until tonight, when we could talk about it some more and find out if we do want CHP to come here and talk to us as a group. If we want to go that way, I'm all for that. If we don't want to go that way, I'll be more than happy to meet with them. But I want that to be a group decision before I jumped in there and did it. So,
And if I could just add a
Yeah.
couple comments before you might have a discussion there, just to add the latest information in. What I told you at the last meeting here was that the commission had a study session, a work session about that topic, and at that work session, I think Bob was the only PRAC member who was at that work session, if I recall. But the commission asked the staff to go forth in putting together a draft of some type of an agreement that would allow CHP to do, basically what we've talked about, that was essentially what that grant that they received was for, was doing some additional programming at the Interpretive Center. We brought back a draft of an agreement to the City Commission per their direction at last week's City Commission meeting. And that's on the city's website under the archive meetings if you're interested in watching that discussion. They did not approve the agreement. They wanted to have further discussion about it. There were some issues that they were still somewhat concerned about, some of it having to do with the main issues I think they were concerned about were the City Commission has asked for CHP to create a board position permanently for a City Commission representative to make sure that there's the linkage of communication. And this maybe goes beyond just what's going on at the Interpretive Center as well. It might be not just about that, but it's mostly about that. And then there were some concerns expressed about part of the grant that CHP received calls for putting some investment back into the facility, some maintenance investment and signage, and there's actually been some discussion that I've had with Dan Fowler and that group about they're trying to come up with a way to do some maintenance work on the hoops. If you haven't noticed them recently, they're very much in need of some help. They're very rusted, and they need to be repainted at a minimum to make it look okay. Since it seems like at this point kind of a bigger issue about ever putting the covered wagon, the coverings back on because of the expense of doing that and so forth. So at least there is some work going on about discussing at least trying to get the hoops painted so that they look nicer than they do right now. So the commission had the concern about how, if it was going to be in the agreement or not, to say that CHP will direct a certain amount of money back to the facility and some of that kind of stuff. So there was a little bit of discussion. So they wanted to put that off until their next opportunity, which at this point is going to be I think it's July 18th is the next available city commission meeting where that would come forward. So this is kind of your opportunity between now and the next time that the commission will discuss that. If you have any further questions or input, you always have the opportunity to provide the commission additional input, although I think Mike expressed your position on that pretty well at the report that he gave. The agreement is the draft of the agreement is available. It's a public document, and of course it's available for you to look at. I could email that to you if you wanted, or again, if you go on the website and you just look at archive meetings, the agendas are on there. So you would go to whatever last Wednesday's date was. So I think it was the 20th. Go to the June 20th meeting, go to the agenda, and then there will be links to the documents, and that document would be on there. So,
But that you said was not approved.
that is correct.
draft
Yeah,
agreement.
it's a draft agreement, and that in its current written format is.
Okay, all right.
So if you're interested in reading that, you can do that. If you want me to email it to you, just let me know, and I'll be glad to do that. I think that's it. I just wanted to make sure you were up to date on the most recent discussion that had taken place with the city commission about that.
Not really meant to be a joke, but why don't we paint the hoops a rust color? At least it would be uniform color, and
So you're not battling
and then-
it. You're not battling it
I
each
mean,
time.
you could tell. Just by looking at it, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Yeah, but liability, if you don't know it's going to rust, what's going to happen when it falls and somebody...
Well, I think the rust actually that Brian, what you just said has been discussed.
Yeah.
Do we there's some things are intentionally where you let it oxidize and just look rusty for an effect.
Statue of Liberty.
And that's certainly been discussed. But
Yeah.
that would probably be more of an extensive process even than just painting them with a fresh coat of white. But the reality is, as has been pointed out by some, that the rusted look is probably what most of the wagons rolling into Oregon City look like. Those hoops,
They
but
wouldn't have
at any
been
rate.
sparkly white like that,
No.
for sure.
But it's kind of like at that stage where it looks like something needs to be done. You either
right.
go all the way one way or the other. So
Right.
Mike,
not a bad thing.
at the meeting that Scott referenced that I attended, Dan Fowler mentioned that Home Depot had volunteered to donate a certain amount of money or products. I think they were talking about painting, if I remember right.
Right.
Did that come up in the commission meeting?
Not the recent one, no. But that's been discussed, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is that effort is in the works. Actually, Dan Fowler, CHP, are kind of working on another avenue of funding that with some grants and some donations to offer that to the city. It's not a done deal, so don't hear me saying that. But it's being that's still on the table, or still being explored, I guess is what I would say.
And I think, secondly, it'd be to our advantage that we have them come and talk to us. I missed last meeting, so had we decided that they would come and talk to us or not?
No, where we left it at the last meeting, Scott gave us a verbal recap of the commission's work session, and then after that meeting the next day, he provided us with the written materials that CHP had presented to the commission for us to review, and we were going to come back at this meeting and decide whether or not to invite them here. I did get a chance, Don can't be present tonight, but I did get a chance, because I know this is a hot button of his, to talk to him about this, and I'm confident putting words in his mouth that he would like to see them come here also. So,
I think it'd be a great idea to hear what they have to say. Otherwise, we sit here and guess what their proposal is, and there's obviously tension in the system somewhere. And if we're supposed to be advising and trying to help the commission, we ought to know what we're talking about. So I think it'd be a good idea.
Were there reservations expressed last meeting? I'm trying to recall it.
Yes.
I thought there were some reservations about
Yes.
it coming. I don't quite recall why. Again, I misplaced my notes.
not enough. It's not. It's a stopgap. I think the general feeling, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but it was just, it was a stopgap and doesn't really get us any closer to what that site should be. Meanwhile, here goes a year, or however long the agreement is, and is anything going to be happening to address that the bigger picture, or is it going to be out of sight, out of mind? Right? Is that?
I also think that Don wanted us to read the material before we made a decision, to have more information before they came into. Now that we've had a chance to do that, can't speak for him, but it seemed like that was his concern.
Yeah.
It's a logical next step.
Okay. Unfortunately, that would be September.
Yeah, and
Right.
and so
Oh.
timing-wise, it's a little awkward because potentially the commission is going to take action on that agreement before the next time you would even talk about it.
When is that going to come back to them?
July 18th, the second regular meeting in July. They don't have they ended up canceling, the commission canceled their normal first meeting in July because it fell around the Independence Day holiday, and they just decided to cancel a commission meeting, which is pretty unusual to do that. But so that's the next opportunity. So the commission said, we want to wait and bring this back and have some further discussion. They've asked us, staff, to go and continue discussing with CHP about some of the concerns that were expressed.
And are they reworking the document, the agreement?
They is really is the city talking to
Are they?
CHP. Yeah, so they is me kind of talking. So I want to be as completely open and transparent as I can be to tell you that the document that was presented to the commission, which wasn't approved, is available. And if you're really interested in this, you probably should read through that. It's a really pretty straightforward and simple agreement. It just kind of says, CHP got a grant and would like to operate the interpretive center on behalf of, just to promote visitorship in Oregon City because it's closed right now. This agreement would give them the legal ability, this is legal permission from the city to do that. The city still has complete and absolute control of the site. We have all kinds of outs of the agreement if we need to. There's a 30-day notification without reason kind of a thing if there were any major problems or concerns that came up or what have you. And the agreement was through the end of 2013. So it's basically, the idea was to make it like a year-and-a-half trial to see how that went while the city was still, it gets to what you were saying, Mike, while the city is still considering everything about the whole site. And we're talking about, I think I've mentioned this to you before, but there's a national convention coming to Oregon City next summer in July, the Oregon California Trails Association, commonly referred to as OCTA. You'll probably hear a lot more about that in the coming months over the next year. It's a big national organization that is focused on the Oregon Trail, and they move their site around to different places around the country every year. and they have their annual conference in not in Oregon City. It's actually going to be, I think the site is at the Monarch Hotel, but then they go out from there to different places to visit. And so Oregon City wants to make a concerted effort to get this group to come to the end of the Oregon Trail site or to come to other places in Oregon City that are historic and important. And so we've actually been directed, one of the commission's stated goals is that they want to have a major event that coincides with that OCTA convention next year, probably at the end of the Oregon Trail site. That would be something that the whole community could come to, but also to draw those people in. And I'm thinking in terms of, as well as that, maybe there's some connection to this idea that you're generating about a Parks Day. Because we only have the capacity as staff to do so many major events and resources, depending on what that idea develops into for the Parks Day. I'm kind of hoping that there may be a way to tie that stuff together.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds
at any
good.
rate.
Do you know what the date is? Do you recall the date on that OCTA thing?
It's July of 2013. I don't know the exact. I've got it written down somewhere, but it's in July. I could. If you want to know, I could send you
I'm trying to
the.
find it in the
No,
notes.
that's just a year away.
It is.
A lot of work to do on that place.
There sure is. That's why the idea was being kicked around about, at least maybe
Before company comes.
getting the hoops painted to make it look more presentable, and probably some other things. And the part of the grant that CHP got was for some updating the signage and some of the interpretive signage and that type of thing. And also we've talked about, I know that I've mentioned this to you, that part of their objective was to do some self-guided interpretation where you could use your cell phone, your smartphones, or your iPads, or some kind of device that you would connect to something, and you would give you kind of a tour that you didn't have to rely on having somebody, a staff person, didn't have to take a paid tour through the facility like it used to be. So there's still that kind of stuff going on, and hoping to have some of those things in place by next year.
It sounds like they just objected to a few of the provisions of the agreement, Scott, is that correct?
Right.
That most of it was okay, but just there was a few hang-ups. So
I think so, yeah.
So, Scott, is it your opinion that your reworking of this, the staff reworking of this, will be an acceptable? I mean, just your opinion. And so, when you meet with the commission in July, do you think you'll have an agreement that's acceptable and that meets their?
That's what I've been asked to do, so
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to do.
So, I guess
whether they do or not.
as far as our decision, that's what I'm helping to try to make a decision whether we have them talk to us or not. And it sounds like you're going to have a workable agreement, or potentially a high
yeah.
probability of a workable agreement in July.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we can't communicate with them, and they've been asked to have a representative for the commission. That representative probably would be the same one that would talk to us, I would imagine.
correct. Yeah.
Anyway,
And I think, yeah. So I think that it would still be. I think it'd still be really valuable for. It would be Dan that would come, Dan Fowler, and just go through what they are planning to do, so you can hear it directly from him versus kind of through me to you. But also for you to ask questions that you might have that you're wondering about or interested in. And ultimately, the city, as I told you, the city has the ability to manage this working relationship. So the input from the Parks Committee, even if we've already approved an agreement at that point that you're having that conversation, there's going to be this ongoing dialogue that's going to be going back and forth. So by no means does it mean, well, the agreement's done, so we're already moving down the road. No, it's an ongoing thing that we're going to be kind of filling out how we go through the process of doing this. It's going to be we're going to be taking some baby steps, I guess, and we'll still be in those baby steps at that point.
So if you reach an agreement, or if the commission comes to an agreement at their meeting on the 18th, when are they proposing to start using the site and doing some of the programs that they have in mind? Would it be this summer?
Mm-hmm.
So by the time we would have a September meeting, we could talk about not only their plans going forward, but hey, how's it working so far?
Exactly.
And we could get a chance to go down there and check out what they're doing. So do we want to invite them then to our September meeting?
I think we should
Yep.
give
Okay.
us an update.
It would seem a responsible alternative in the meantime that if any of us can go as private citizens to that commission meeting on the 18th, that allows us to not only gain more information, but to be a form of support to the commission and to Scott and his department.
Great point.
You could go as citizens, or you could go with a singular voice if somebody wanted to go and represent you and make any comments in particular as well. I mean, that you have that opportunity as well. So just keep that in mind, that you've always got the opportunity to go to a commission meeting when there's a particular topic that they're discussing. You know, there's always a comment portion of most things they discuss, and you have that opportunity.
Okay.
Just be sure that when you go, anytime you would go as a representative of this committee, you'd want to make sure that whatever you're saying is actually on behalf of the committee.
Representative.
So you've got to make that clarification when you're speaking. I'm speaking for myself, or I'm speaking as, you know, the Parks and Rec Committee representative or whatever. But that's always, that option is always there for you on any topics that interest you that the commission are discussing.
Just
So
one more question on that topic, and then unless there's something else, we can move on. So there was a task force. Ted, I think, was our representative to that. Has that group has now produced a report and its work is done?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they've kind of, that was the work piece that was asked for, and then
And
was
in
it.
the big scheme of things, that their output, that's the long range plan for the site
Right.
still. Okay. Okay.
so that's why I think you had talked about that Dawn was going to be kind of the person to keep an eye on things or be involved with things. There aren't any particular, you know, there's no more task force meeting or anything like that. It's just going to be at this point dialogue with CHP, with the commission as to other things that they might be thinking about. It doesn't have to just be about CHP. That Pratt probably, you know, could be as involved or as little or as much as you want to be, if that makes sense. So it's
That's
there's
what
not
I'd
going to
like
be, you're not going to get, you know, an invitation to come to some task force meeting or other kinds of things at this point. It's just tracking what's going on, and I'll do my best to keep you informed, and you can do as much or as little as you want to be involved in that discussion. So.
Yeah, I really think we've got a lot of really great ideas on this committee, but don't sell yourself short in any way whatsoever. Because even, you know, if Dan Fowler is sitting here talking to us, it's not as if some suggestion that we would have that we could advocate for or advise wouldn't be a good idea that they might implement or they may
Right.
want. So it can be two-way. It can be a two-way conversation. You can tell us what's going on, but we can say, "Have you thought about X, Y, and Z?" And you could go, "Oh, I thought about X, not Y and Z. That's a good idea." So as long as it's within the agreement at that point, and the signed agreement or the agreed upon document, you know, we could potentially have a good idea from this committee that goes into that program.
And I'll send Don an email, make sure he knows about the commission meeting on the 18th, and also that we've invited them to our meeting on the 26th, or the September meeting, whenever that is, whatever the date is.
What time's that commission meeting on the 18th? Is that
7
at
o'clock.
7?
7 p.m. Yes.
Okay, annual goals update, and I seem to have misplaced my copy, so I'm going to have to read over here. The only thing...
It should be linked on
Oh.
your screens there as an attachment, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
It is. Okay, good. Just hit
Okay.
212 goals and document, and it opens up.
Document. Go.
So the numbers 8 and 9 were added per your discussion at your last meeting. So I put this back on so you could see if that is satisfactory to what you were intending, or if you want to make any other changes on that.
Looks good to me. And that's the only changes, was 8 and 9, right?
Correct.
That's good.
Question, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Scott, you suggested, I think, that we have this event in coordination with that July 2013 End of the Oregon Trail activity. Is that what you were suggesting?
Well, yeah, with that, I'm not really clear on what we want to do yet, but I guess I've just been
Just an
thinking
idea.
that it might be logical to somehow to put those things
Yeah.
together.
Economy of scale.
Yeah. There's also going to be probably some resources attached to the event that's going to be going on at the end of the trail site because the commission said that's what they want to do. So there's going to
Yeah.
be some resources to go along with that actually.
Be a
to do
jumping off
something.
point for the.
Yeah. But that might not be exactly what the PrAC was thinking about, but it may be tied together somehow or completely or partially or maybe not at all. But yeah, just kind of thinking that might be logical.
Yeah.
And
We really do want this to be an event for the citizens of Oregon City. So that would be something we need to talk about, whether or not we think that could happen. Because we'd be kind of pulling away from maybe a different center of gravity right there, and then doing, I don't know, worth discussing. Maybe just thinking out loud.
Yeah, I think we may need to know more about what's going to be involved that day with what we want to get involved with also, because I understand what you're saying about the limited time and resources and so forth, but Brian's also right that that's going to be going on at other sites other than just that one. So
I think that'll be a discussion we'll continue to have here, and I'll keep you posted as to the development of the program related specifically to the End of the Oregon Trail site, and we'll just kind of see where that goes.
okay. Moving on, July Parks and Recreation Month proclamation.
So as part of your materials, you should have received the signed proclamation that looks like that. That proclamation was given and signed by Mayor Neely at last Wednesday's City Commission meeting. Nationally, through our National Recreation and Parks Association, this is an annual thing that we do, and we've done a proclamation most years, unless somehow it slipped past slipped through the cracks on us. But usually we do this in our city. A couple of the things in this are tailor-made to Oregon City, but basically it's a national Parks and Rec month that we tie into, and it's just to create awareness for the purposes of the value and the benefits of park and recreation activities and facilities and so forth. And actually, Congress, the U.S. House of Representatives, a number of years ago designated July as Parks and Recreation Month every year. So we kind of utilize that as well and tie into that. And this is we did this at the last meeting because coming up to the month of July. And what we don't necessarily do a lot with this. It's more of an awareness thing, but July is probably, if not our busiest month, one of the busiest months that we have, and with with all the programs and activities that we have going on. So it's a good time of year, obviously, to talk about that. So this is just for your information and awareness, and if you want to make copies and give it around to your friends or something like that, you're welcome to do that. But
Sort of a did you know thing.
go around door to door in your neighborhood or something like that. Might get a couple of funny looks. No, whatever it's really just informational for you.
So that, jumping back, sorry, the OCTA is July 22nd to the 26th, 2013 in Clackamas, Oregon.
Yep.
So it probably is that hotel you were talking about.
Yeah, the Monarch.
The theme of the convention is the end of the Oregon Trail and beyond.
I guess they're going to the beach.
And they're going to go make salt on the beach at Seaside.
Oh, at the Salt Works facility?
Yeah. So July 22nd to 26th.
That's right.
So there's that. So it looks like July might, whatever.
Park and Rec week too.
Whatever.
Exactly. Part of Parks and Rec Month.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I mean the meeting's on the 25th that month.
We'll work that out. Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, our meeting.
Yeah. 25th.
And we haven't since we're talking about the dates, we haven't selected the exact date that event is going to be on yet, but obviously it's got to be at some point where those folks from the convention will be around. So.
Yeah.
And if July is Parks and Recreation Month every year, then that's another reason why to do our open house thing in July, tied in with that. So, okay.
And
Moving
we do it
on.
every year.
What?
We do it every year.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Move to a different, because we're not going to be able to cover all
Right.
40 whatever
Yeah.
park properties. So move on.
Annual event.
We'll go from year to year.
Yeah, another great idea.
Okay. Moving on to Metro Open Spaces Funding Local Share Program Update. Boy, there's a title.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just looking at some information that's related to this. Just to give you an update, and if you have any questions, and also to let you know, there's going to be something that the commission's going to be discussing further about this, and I want to make you aware of that in case you want to engage in that conversation. I think many of you are aware, but maybe some are not. Some of the newer members, especially. Back in 2006, Metro, the regional organization, passed a very large bond measure for parks and open spaces for the entire Metro region, which Oregon City is within that boundary. Some of those funds are, and that bond measure regionally was in excess of $300 million. I don't remember the exact total, but so regionally that is going to be invested into parks and open spaces. And the way that works is that some of that money is targeted for what would be considered regional open space acquisitions for very, very large things. And previously, for example, Metro purchased the Newell Creek Canyon property and the Kenema Bluffs property in the bond prior to the 2006 one. It was actually a 95 bond that was a 10-year program that they finished up, and then they passed. The voters approved the second bond measure. So as the piece that pertains to what we're talking about right now is that there is a portion of that goes to what is called the local share program, and that is that any park provider agency within the Metro boundaries who negotiated with Metro to receive a share of that funding, and it's based on basically population for the most part, formulas, receive directly from this bond measure local share funds to be used in our community as we see fit as a community for, and there are some parameters. It has to be for mostly kind of open space, natural areas, but there's a little bit of flexibility with that. So that the city received from that $988,000, just under $1 million. We entered into a 5-year agreement with Metro in 2007 that expired in April, and we have not expended all of those funds yet. We've expended to date just a little less than $650,000 of the $988,000. So we have still remaining about $340,000. We've used it for 2 purchases, and again, some of you probably recall this because you were on the committee and involved with these discussions. The Glen Oak Park property, we used $500,000 of it. That was our number one targeted open space acquisition goal within the city. We used $500,000 of this fund towards that purchase, and then we used another portion of it for the Kenema open space purchase that we did that's actually kind of near the Kenema Children's Park area and the Kenema Bluffs area. We bought a few acres for basically open space and kind of the contiguous open spaces around the Kenema area. So there's a couple things I'm letting you know about here. We still have $340,000 to decide how to utilize that have not been spent. Our agreement expired with Metro at the last City Commission meeting last week on the 20th. The Commission approved a 1-year extension of that agreement through 2013. We can continue to extend that until we expend those funds. It's just kind of a formality. The bigger part of this, why I'm letting you know, is that at the Commission's upcoming work session on July 10th, they will be discussing the use of these open spaces funds and trying to determine where we want to go with that. We created, initially when we entered into this agreement with Metro, the city created a list of priorities. There was actually a list of, and on that list were the Glen Oak open space, some Kenema property, and then there were 2 or 3 others, I believe, on there that were identified as some potential uses. I'm going to email that list around to you again as a reminder, or for some of you who this might be new information to. I'm going to give myself a note here to send that. So if the Parks Committee wants to engage in that conversation about the priorities, you're welcome to come to that Commission work session on July 10th. We can also take the information that we get from the Commission. I'll bring it back to you for some further discussion. No decisions are going to be made, and no, we're not going to run out and buy some property before the next time that we have a chance to discuss it here. But we'll try to get some direction from both the Parks Committee as well as the City Commission on where we want to go with that. So we're going to start having some discussions about that, and we need to prioritize how to utilize those funds. Because if we don't use them, they just go away. It's money that the city gets, and it's, we either use it or we don't get it.
How is that money? What is that money allocated specifically for? Just property purchase only?
Just purchases, not development. That's correct.
Just purchasing,
Right.
not development.
Purchase only, not development. Unfortunately, because we have some development projects that we could certainly utilize that for. But, yeah, just and no maintenance or anything like that. So yeah, just purely for acquisition. So we have to target how we might want to acquire some additional open space.
And that property then that would be purchased, does it have to be a designated park? Does it have to be?
Correct.
I mean, it does have to be designated park.
Yeah, permanent. It has to be permanently an open space or a park.
But it can be developed on our dime later on. It
Right,
isn't
absolutely.
an open space reserve.
Correct. Right. We can.
I suppose
We can
we
develop
you
it.
say-
We can at a
We
later
can develop
date
it. That is
develop it.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
we
Just
could
not with
add
those
to
funds.
existing property, is that, or to existing parks, to expand existing parks?
certainly
Is that
can.
a possibility?
That does work within the.
Okay.
Yes.
Seems to me that this is a huge allotment of money that if we're talking spaces for public parks, the city commission seems like the city commission would really want our input on them. That's like this should be one of our priority goals right now. Identify spaces for them, unless they have in the previous workshop meetings already kind of has someone done some footwork and have some identified properties already kind of out there?
That's So over 5 years ago, the commission approved this list of targeted areas is really what it's called.
Okay.
And that was actually in our agreement with Metro that said these are the. As I said, I think it's 5 areas, and I will email you. I should have brought that tonight, and I apologize that I didn't think about doing that until just now. But I'll email you that information, and be assured there's no. We're not behind the curve on anything here. There's just going to be some discussions, and it'll come back and be discussed more with PRAC, and you'll certainly have plenty of opportunity to have input. So yeah, it was initially identified as these targeted areas. I think what we're trying to do at this point is we've checked the first 2 off the list, and the other ones were the lower priorities, and they were a little bit more fuzzy as far as being certain that that's what we wanted to do or not. And we can reevaluate that and change our priorities if we want. We have the option to do that with our Metro agreement. We can go back and say, we had this area targeted before, but it's changed. Our priorities have changed in the last 5 or 6 years, and we'd like to look at something else. So, for example, one of the areas that was discussed was a watershed area off of Myers Road, the canyon that's kind of to the south of the Higgins development that goes down in there. There's some, originally the commission was put that on their list. Since that was, done 5 years ago or whatever, that property isn't even really available for that, for being acquired anymore. So we're probably going to take that one off the list and then reevaluate the rest of that and kind of.
But we're not tied to something on that list. There could be something totally new.
That's correct.
Okay.
We do have that option.
Okay.
The commission, and just to clarify with you, the commission, when I brought that agreement back to them for approval last week, the commission has asked to discuss this at a work session. So that's why that's why it's being put on a commission's agenda. They've already said that they want PrAC input on this as well. So it might be a relatively brief discussion, and is going to have to come back to PrAC and then go back to the commission again for some further discussion after you've had more of an opportunity. So this is all pretty fresh information. So it's probably going to be a process over the next few months where we're going to be talking about this and then maybe reevaluating and redetermining what that priorities list is, getting PrAC to agree with it, and then the commission to agree, and then that'll give the staff, myself and my staff, the direction to go out and start, looking for potential property.
So you'll
July
email us.
10th.
Yeah, the date you said July 10th?
Correct.
Is their work session?
Right.
And you're going to email us the list that exists
Yes.
now? Okay.
And you'll be at that work session yourself,
Yes,
right?
I will.
So you'll probably be able to report everything to us.
I will.
Do you want one of us, do you prefer
I plan to be there.
Yeah,
You
it's
just
up to you.
Yeah,
That's,
unless there's something else.
for this specific thing? Yeah.
yeah, that's why I was advising you about this, just to let you know, to make sure you had the opportunity to be there if you want to, if you would like to. I mean, there's realizing that you haven't discussed this other than just kind of getting an introduction from me about it tonight, and then we'll have some more tangible information to discuss at the next opportunity. As we keep saying tonight, probably that next opportunity is going to be in September at this point, unless normally you don't have a meeting in August, but you always decide that in July. We've done that for for as long as I've been here. So you always have the opportunity to change that direction, but that's typically, we take August and December and don't meet, and we're still above the minimum number of times that you have to meet. So I'm talking about not having a meeting in August as if that's already been decided, which it hasn't. So that's up to you to decide. But that's just been one of those months that it's always worked out because it's kind of right at the end of the summer time and right before school starts up again and all that stuff. So.
Okay. Okay, anything else on the local share topic? All right, anything else under general business? Okay. PrAC member reports. Marty, why don't we start at your end this time?
Well, I know that it's a long walk from on top of the hill all the way to Clackamas Park. My wife decided we were going to start walking, so on Sunday morning we walked all the way from up on the hill by my grocery outlet and walked all the way down to Clackamas Park. And
That's a
beautiful morning.
That's a
but-
terrific start.
And the return trip?
And the return, yeah.
Wow.
I was going to call my kids down and pick me up. But it was really a nice walk. It's not like it used to be. I mean, the sidewalks are all taken care of now, and years ago, we're up here, so we used to ride our bikes through bumps. They've done a really nice job fixing the place up. Nice walk.
Right.
Well, yeah, just really quick, I went to the Mentor Enhancement Committee grant meeting, and the two projects that we advocated for, the Parents of Murdered Children and also the Oregon City High School construction program, Wesley Lynn 1.5.
Right.
And the data display board that the Oregon City swim team put in a grant application for were all awarded. Pretty much all that they needed to get those projects going, which amounted to 37.5% of the money that was allocated this year. So
Wow.
those projects that we advocated for and essentially going right into Park and Rec. We're 37.5% of what Metro handed over to us, 50 cents on the ton. So we're making really good things out of garbage here in Oregon City.
That's right. Okay, Patrick?
Nothing new to report outside of my little McLaughlin district. I'm enjoying hanging out with my son. Summertime is here. It's great.
That's right. Well, I had a chance, I'm going to steal a little of Scott's next topic. I had a chance to go to the Kanema Park grand opening, little open house and ribbon cutting, and Don was behind the grill. And it was a great event. There were a lot of people there. And if you haven't seen that site, it is absolutely beautiful. Not only just the physical site itself and the views, but the amenities and upgrades that have been done are really, really good. It's a beautiful park.
Okay, and I echo that. I was there as well, and that park is gorgeous with the trails and the woods that are next to it. We did a little hiking down in there, and it's really, I would recommend everybody go. We'll be going back. It's a beautiful site, and I can remember being up there a few years ago, and it didn't look quite that good. So all the work that's been done is just incredible. It's truly a gem. And also, I did take the opportunity to watch you do your report, and that was fabulous. So thank you for doing that and representing us so well. And other than that, I'm done.
Thank you. Lynn?
Yes, I checked in with Kathy Wiseman at the Pioneer Center, and she said that they had just completed signatures with the county contracts, which pays for some of the services that are administered through the Pioneer Center. So this year is all anticipated and planned for. Also, they're very involved with all the planning around the concerts in the park. They'll be very much present for each of those. I think there's 3 Thursday nights in July and 4 in August, so if people get a chance to go to those, you'll probably see Kathy and some of her staff volunteering as well. They're also getting going with their summer classes at the Pioneer Center. Thanks.
Great. Bob?
Well, just want everybody to know that it's important to be on time for meetings. And I was here last Thursday. And I met Scott going out, and I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "What are you doing here?" So, anyway, I was here last Thursday. And,
Bob gets the earliest meeting attender ever.
But did we have a good meeting?
nobody argued with me. I've been out of state in the last 3 or 4 weeks, so I've missed some of the events. And I'll have to be leaving again sometime in July. We had a death in my family in Nevada, so we've been going back and forth trying to get some things worked out with my family. I'm very pleased to hear that we're going to have some input into the end of the Oregon Trail issue. And I really think that's very important, especially with the events coming up a year from now. A lot of work has to be done, and so I'm hopeful that whatever issues that remain between the CHP, is it?
CHP.
And the city can be worked out in a positive fashion so that things can move ahead. I don't know all the details, but I'm sure that everybody would like to see that taken care of. I'm also just learned tonight about the local share program. I think that's another interesting issue that we have an opportunity to make some recommendations at the appropriate time. So I think that's a good thing to be involved in. And I'm learning a little bit each time I come to this meeting, so I'll just keep asking questions and listening to the pros here, and maybe somewhere down the line I'll know as much as some of you do, but that might take a while. That's my report.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to staff report. Scott?
Got a few items for you. The Kanema Park Community Celebration. A couple of you already spoke about that. We had a great event. Nice day, nice turnout, and appreciate everybody who was able to make it. And yeah, it just went really well. So couldn't be happier about that. So yeah, another park open. Check.
Yeah.
We've been only working on that one
That's
for about going on 10 years or something.
During your tenure. Get that on your resume.
The item B there, the RV park veteran fee waiver proposal. This is just kind of an update on that issue. You may recall that 2 or 3 meetings ago, representative of the neighborhood association, the CIC group, came forward and proposed that we adopt a policy similar to what State Parks has, where veterans receive essentially a no-charge entrance into the RV park. And the committee, were supportive of that idea and exploring that further. Well, and then what happened, actually it was more than a couple meetings ago, it was a while back. That's getting to what my point is. It was several meetings ago. Then the person that made that proposal asked that we hold off, just kind of asked me if we could just hold off. There was some issue with a veterans group or something. I didn't even get all the details, honestly. I don't know what the concern was, but that basically the proposer said, hey, can you kind of hold off? We're trying to work through something has come up about this. So that's why you haven't heard anything from me on that for a while. Then just recently, that same person, his name is Larry Hanlon, he's the gentleman that actually proposed that to you that night, said, we've got all those issues are ironed out, so our proposal is still valid. So I'll be bringing forward to you for further consideration a proposed policy of some type at hopefully at your next meeting, which either be September or possibly August or whatever you decide you want to do. So just an update on that hasn't gone away, but it did get kind of put on the side burner a little bit while apparently something was getting worked out with some groups that, I don't think the details were even important, whatever it was, but that will be coming your way for further consideration. The next item is the reminder or the announcement to you. We have annually, we do a volunteer appreciation day kind of in conjunction with our summer concert series. We invite all the city's volunteers to come and be honored and recognized, and for all the hours that you put in as volunteers, we give you a free dinner. So I gave you some flyers at your places that has some information about that. It's August 9th. As I said, that's at one of our concert nights at Carnegie Library Park over here. There's a little sticker that you bring, and if you have that, you get a free dinner that night. So encourage you to take advantage of that and come out and let the city thank you for your volunteerism. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. Ermitinger House, just to keep you updated on what's going on. There's nothing in particular to discuss or anything to that matter. But we are continuing, as I've been reporting to you, we are working with an architect and engineering group, developing the final plans for the eventual restoration, preservation of the house. I believe I told you previously, and if I didn't, then this is kind of that confirmation that we received our largest grant thus far on that project in the amount of $140,000 from Clackamas County through the Community Development Block Grant Program, which is actually a federal program. We put in for that and competed very well and got $140,000 to go towards the restoration of the house. I think I'd mentioned that we were in the running for that, but I don't know if I'd confirmed with you that we know for sure that we've received that. Sort of the next steps then are the architect and engineering group. Their work is supposed to wrap up in about midsummer, and then basically what we'll have is a complete set of plans that will be our eventual construction documents that we'll use to go out to bid and do the restoration. Meanwhile, we're still working on having our funding package assembled so that we can do the project. And again, this is under the direction of, this is one of the city commission's goals, one of their top goals. They've had it on their goals list for a couple of years. The project, the physical project, would likely take place beginning in the summer of 2013, so a year from this summer. The reason for that is twofold. One is just logistics of getting things going, and then a bidding process and things like that. But the grant that I just told you about, the Community Development Block Grant, one of the stipulations of that is that we were funded. It's a 3-year funding cycle that begins this year. We are funded in year 2, which is July 1 of 2013 is the beginning of that second fiscal year of that program. So we can't utilize those funds until then. And another stipulation of that grant money is that the county actually has to administer the grant, even though it's our project, which is okay with us because it helps with staff time, and it's somebody else doing a lot. It's a lot of administrative work to administer a project, a construction project, and all that stuff. But we still have complete control of the product and the project itself, but they do the administrative work and the bookkeeping and that kind of stuff. So the project itself wouldn't be done until basically a year from now. Any questions about that? Just want to make sure that I wasn't, I didn't know if that was clear enough. Then let's see. Finally, the recreation report. Just to let you know that we've entered into our official busy season, and summer is well underway for us as a recreation department. We have lots of things going on. We have camps that take place at Rivercrest Park on a weekly basis. We also have aqua camps at the swimming pool, our swim lessons program at the pool, and our open swims. A lot of things going on at the Pioneer Center. Lots of activities in our parks. We have a few sports camps and just a few other classes and activities. But basically, our parks, this is our busy time. We have the spray parks at Carnegie and also at Rivercrest, which on the nicer weather days have been really busy. I went by Rivercrest a couple of days ago when I think it was in the 70s and the sun was out, and that park was packed. And it was a weekday at like 1:30 that I drove by there, and it was just wall-to-wall people, and it's just great to see that. And the same thing was going on that same day at Carnegie. And then I went to the pool that afternoon for a meeting, and we have, I don't know if everybody's aware of this, but outside the pool on our grounds there we have the wading pool, which is free. We operate the wading pool that's adjacent to the building. It's the last remaining wading pool in the city, and that was just full of little ones and parents that looked to be having a great time. And then I went into the pool for my meeting, and it was super busy. And as Brian mentioned, I was going to mention to you as well, one of the grants awarded was to the Oregon City Swim Team, which, if you're not aware of what that is, we have a private swim organization that is, and Brian is actually quite involved with that organization, that we have a partnership with at the pool, that they use our pool space, and we partner with them. They provide we do more recreational and swim lessons, and the swim team is more focused on competitive types of things, and we work closely with them, and they've been working on this initiative for a while to put up a nice electronic reader board for competition and even for practices to use for timing, and that would also be usable for other purposes to project things onto and to put different things on there. So they've got I think about 75 or more % of that funded at this point with the grant that was received from the Metro Enhancement Grant. And we're working, I've met with the group, met with the board, and another person that kind of working on the final details of how that is going to be funded. And hopefully by this fall there will be a really nice new electronic board up at the pool. So.
One other thing that's also happening at the pool, and I'm a coach for it, it's the Summer Rec Swim Team, which the City of Oregon City and the Oregon City Swim Team actually partner on as well. And there's 28 kids from the city that are participating in that. It's a 6-week long program 4 days a week. So it's a lot of fun.
Good commitment.
And then lastly, under the recreation stuff, just again a reminder, the concerts are coming up in the near future here. We kick those off in about the second week in July. And then in August, on Friday nights in August, we've got our 4 movies in the park at Wesley Lynn Park, which is double what we did last year. We did 2, for the first time ever, we did movies in the park last year at Wesley Lynn. Those went really well, and we expanded that to 4 offerings this year. And those are a lot of fun and seem to be really well received by the community. So looking forward to that. So lots of good stuff going on right now. And then I'm going to want to talk a little bit about your park tour at the next meeting when we jump to that.
If we can just dive back for a second on that, on the RV park thing. Obviously, we're right at the beginning of the peak season, but I'm assuming that with all the steps this is going to have to go through, like the city commission approval and whatnot, that the fact that we're not meeting for a couple of months is not the only thing that's keeping that from being possible to do it this year.
That's correct.
Too late to pull it off. But yeah, okay, all right. I just didn't want the fact that we're not meeting to keep it from maybe being able to be used.
No.
Too many hoops.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Anything else?
I have one thing.
Yes.
Just to add to the recreation report, the pool is also serving meals for kids 0 to 18 at no cost on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10:45 to 11:45. We also serve them at several elementary schools, Mount Pleasant, Holcomb, Eastham, and Jennings Lodge. But we're excited about the partnership with the pool this summer.
Thanks for
So
thanks
that's
for
a
the
school
reminder
district
about that.
program
Yep.
that's happening at the pool. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're glad to be partnering with the school district on being a host site for that free lunch program.
It's
Yeah,
exciting.
thanks for the announcement about that.
I have one thing to add too. I'm really uncomfortable with how quickly we're moving through the agenda. I was just like, as I look at the time, wow. But no, I forgot in my report that larger view of recreation for our community and our area. Dawn's been one who often brings us to thinking about water sports and water access, and I was encouraged that the community newspaper from Morgan City that got delivered in the mail to me this morning had a front page article, and I didn't get a chance to read it in detail, but it looked as though the Clackamas County Commissioners are taking issue with the Corps of Engineers having locked down the locks, the transportation piece, and they're really calling into question whether that's what needs to be in place. And I'm so excited because I've just so recently really understood you don't use the upper part of the river if you can't get to it. And if you can't get safely around it, it really limits your recreation access. So that's the larger picture part that I'm really excited about. So we'll be watching to see what progress is made with that.
That's a good point. Just to expand on that just a little bit further, that I'm really glad you mentioned that. We, as a Parks and Rec department anyway, we really don't have a lot to do with that. The city has engaged itself in that discussion just because it's very important. But the entity that controls the locks is the Army Corps of Engineers, a federal agency, and they've had control of the locks, which is not that's pretty common with navigable waterways and locks on those. Is that the Army Corps of Engineers is the entity that runs those, and then when funding issues come up at the federal level, which is what has happened here, those get the operations get depleted, and eventually what has happened with the closures and so forth like that. So that's a federal funding mechanism or a federal program that runs that, but the discussion about maybe some local controls over that or whatever, I think is that's an important topic. When they're not working, people don't have any way to navigate that.
Mm-hmm. It's exciting.
Is that in the transportation bill? Anybody know?
I don't know.
I haven't a clue.
I think it might be, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
something
not sure.
just passed in the transportation.
Oh, I didn't know it passed. I thought they were still fighting about it. Anything else before we move on and talk about our next meeting and our park tour? Okay. So our next meeting would be July 26th, which I cannot be present at.
Oh.
So I'm going to miss the second park tour.
Oh.
Missed it the last time. So Scott, you want to talk about details on that?
Sure.
Actually, I can't be there either, so.
Oh,
I guess maybe then the first question I would ask is, do you want to think about rescheduling that? If it's something that, I think it's one of those things where getting the most people to get the bang for our buck is we get one of our buses from the Pioneer Center, and we usually do a meal because we try to start earlier in the evening, and it's great to have as many of you there as we possibly can. Of course, it's always going to be a scheduling issue, but do you want to consider working around that date and do a different date in July, or
Just do a different date.
Calendar.
Have to do it on
Yeah, like the first Thursday in August, the next Thursday.
you can?
What is that?
Yeah,
that would be the 2nd, August 2nd.
that's correct. August 2nd.
You August 2nd.
Probably couldn't meet here though.
I'm good August 2nd.
What's that?
We'd have to meet maybe in the Pioneer Center or what?
We'll
Well, that's what we did.
We
usually
last
meet
yeah
in
we've done this traditionally. We've done this about every other year or so, give or take. We'll work out the logistics. We'll either meet in the parking lot at the Pioneer Center, or we could even actually just meet in the parking lot here. Have the bus come over. The vehicles parking is a little bit easier here. So what we've done in the past, well, I guess we can finish that discussion about the date, but we've typically started the tour to allow ourselves enough time before it gets dark, because we try to leave ourselves 3 or 4 hours at least. My recollection is that we've started this around 5 o'clock, maybe push that out to 5:30 if we have to, but the earlier we can start, the better. I know some of you with work or whatever other commitments, there might be some issues with that, but kind of want to get an idea about the time as well, and see if we can figure that out.
The date's fine with me. And
Which one?
Which one? August 2nd?
August 2nd, somebody mentioned or suggested.
Lynn?
Looks good.
It works for me.
I'm on
So,
summer
Bob,
vacation.
if you're going to be
so
here
it
the week
works for
before,
me.
then that would still be the 20.
The 20, I'll be here the 26th. I'll get the bus ready.
Can you make that?
Patrick, does that
Yeah.
work for you?
Yeah, I'm summer
Marty?
vacation.
I'm always good.
Yeah, that's
If I can remember, I'll be here.
It sounds good.
Okay,
I'll
so
make
then
it
we
myself.
will reschedule for August 2nd,
Okay.
Thursday, August 2nd. Tentative time of,
Does 5 work for people? Is that too soon or too early, or does that work? Or being that
That work.
being that we hold you captive during your dinner hour, and kind of, if you have to come straight from work or whatever, what we will do is we'll get a kind of like a sack lunch kind of a thing, and I'll let you know about the menu. Maybe send out an email to get, because we usually have choices on what people want. If you have any particular requests or anything, usually do a lunch. We have something brought in, and so we'll eat while we're on the go, and then in the past, what I've done is asked you for input, and I'd like to do the same, and you can give me that, between now and over the next few weeks, or as soon as you think of it. But like to know if you have particular places that you'd like me to make sure that we go, if there are sites that you want to see or look at that you have questions about. I kind of have a general idea of what makes sense, but I want to make sure if there are particular sites that you either haven't been to and would like to, or you have but don't really know a lot about, let me know. And
Has anybody been on the tour? I mean,
Yeah, I did.
yeah, you just done on your.
So, would it make sense to go to some of the important parks that we talk about and that are on, like,
Potential site for.
right?
Yeah.
And then also the Oregon Trail. Be interesting to walk around that as a group to talk about it.
That makes sense. Yeah.
We'll go to our some of the, most of the bigger parks that are the obvious ones that everybody already knows. What we try to do with this tour is to get to some places that are a little bit more, not the typical parks that you might go to. And then, our undeveloped park sites, the Glen Oak Road property and the Filbert Run property, and maybe anything else that we're looking at. Maybe the the undeveloped portion of Wesley Lynn Park on the Leland
Yeah.
Road side and kind of stop and get out and look at some of that a little bit to get a better idea of what we're
Yeah.
talking about. And if we've progressed in our conversation about the Metro local share stuff, if we have anything that's a potential area, we can do that. Potential dog park sites,
Yeah.
we could visit those.
So spread out with
Yeah.
different neighborhoods,
Yeah.
if possible, if
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like.
Sounds good.
And then also a potential
Sounds like 3 or 4
site for or one of many sites for the July event next year.
Oh, yeah.
So if there are any particular places, like for example with that, or others that you think of, please let me know so I can include them on my list. And what we try to do is kind of map out a route that makes sense geographically to follow and make the round. So it's usually it's for those of you that have been on it before. It's a lot of fun. It's those have been, I think they've been really beneficial. It's kind of a nice way to have a meeting instead of being, in here and get out and into the parks a little bit. But I think they've been really beneficial when we've done those tours in the past to kind of see some different things that maybe, and look at things a little bit differently, even if you've seen them before. So, but my objective is to make it as helpful to you as possible. So that's why I'm asking for feedback if you have any. So,
Okay. August 2nd, 5 p.m. Send Scott your ideas.
Put together what we did last time, and then just send it out.
Yeah.
This is and then if anybody has any additions.
And I support the idea that Larry be our driver, if that's possible.
usually he is. I haven't talked to him
His
yet.
candid
But
remarks are very helpful.
yeah, he's good with that. Yeah, I usually try to for sure get Larry to come along anyway, whether he's the driver or not, just because he
You
has some
can
good
find
insight.
Panema.
That's right.
We got sandwiches last time.
We got sandwiches last time.
Yeah, yeah, we
Bring
do.
our own food this time?
What's that?
You're going to cater this? Yeah, that's right. You said you're
Not
cater-
personally, but yeah, no, we're.
Two
I won't
sandwiches.
be. I'll be making PBs and J's before the.
Yeah.
No, yeah, we usually get one of our catering companies that we work with that we do for things, and they do like brown bag, dinners and stuff. So I'll in advance of the meeting, I'll send you.
You were very excited
the
about that
option.
last time. I remember that.
Okay, anything else? All right, we'll adjourn the meeting at
Wow.
8:22.
Early.
Record.
Chest bump.
Yay.
Watch the Olympics.
Yeah.
So this is